guys, once again, Matt, aka Jug 2 Driver, Skill 4x4. This is going to be part 5 of the Axial Wraith build. This is the transmission build, obviously. So we're starting off with one of the main shafts. This is what the motor will connect to. So the first of a series of gears. Obviously, you've got some bearings in the gear, and then the pin on the shaft. This is the one side of the body of the transmission. Just greasing it up a little bit, spreading it around. Then you got the second smaller shaft, to which you'll put the secondary gear on there. I don't know the proper name for it. I could look it up, but I haven't. It's got two bearings that go in there, and the shaft, obviously, and that press fits into the second slot. Next, you'll have the, I guess you could call this the main drive gear if you want, shaft. This is what will connect directly to your drive shafts to the axles. This setup here. You got the main gear. You got the centerpiece, these shaft extensions that'll go out to the outputs. Some very small screws here, so you want to make sure you pay close attention to those. You don't want to lose them. Be careful tightening. I mean, it's metal to metal, but you just want to make sure you don't overstress it. Kind of treat it like you would the lug nuts on a car. You know, go back and forth, try to get it flat and flush. And then you got a larger set of bearings that'll go on the outside of that'll sit into the carrier of the body itself. This transmission actually has set up. It does not come with it, but it is set up for you to add dig if you want. That's why that shaft's extra long on the opposite, the unopened side. It's got a section for where you could install dig setup if you had it, or if you chose to purchase it later. Obviously, we've got the other half of the transmission body. All goes together nicely. Make sure it press fits. It's going to fit nice and snug. This little plastic piece, make sure you notice it because you do need it. I had to hunt it down. And then this is obviously installing the motor mounting plate and bracket. And this is held on. The metal plate is actually, you actually screw through the body of the transmission into that metal plate that the motor will mount to. So that's how it's held in place. It's not, it doesn't just tap into the plastic. It's actually, the metal plate's threaded, so you'll push those longer screws through there, and that's how that holds into place. See? Kind of one of the things that annoy me about axial kits is constantly going between different size hexes, between, anywhere between 1 millimeter to 5 millimeter. It seems like constantly back and forth. You'll notice it as I go through this, where I'll be using a large one and then I'll have to switch back to a small one and so forth, all in multiple steps. Kind of frustrating, but it's nice to have a tool like this that you can just bounce around. But it does get a little frustrating when you constantly pick the wrong size, as you can see I did just there. Turning, make sure everything's smooth, no binding. I'm good there. Alright, now it's fun time. It's the slipper clutch. This is the friction plate. It's got an adhesive backing on it. Really good adhesive backing, actually, because it was a pain to get that loose. And then you want to make sure you get the correct plate that's going to mount to. In this instance, it is the one with the 3 screw holes. Seems counter to it if you would think that you might go through that, but that is not the case. The screws do not go through there, so you don't have to worry about that. Mount it on that side with a little bit of lip, so it kind of sits flush with the outer edge. And then you're going to mount that onto your main gear, your spur gear. And then you've got some small screws that have washers, so you want to make sure that you take care of those. Try not to lose them, keep them together. And then once again, you're going to sort of do this like you did before. You want to, it's 3 of them, so you just kind of cross between them. Don't over tighten one before moving on to the next one. Kind of bounce around between them and get them as evenly tightened as you can across them. You want to try to keep everything smooth and flush. You see bouncing around once again between different sizes. And then you're going to slide a pin, so make sure you notice that it's going to go in there. It's going to be kind of a tight fit, so a good set of really fine needle nose pliers helps, or some tweezers. And you're going to slide that other backing plate on there, the friction plate, which is then where your spur gear is going to go. And then you've got a series of washers and spring and a nut that'll help you tighten down. And you can set that up however you want. The tightness, find what works for you. I like to snug it all the way down, and then sometimes I'll back it off a quarter of a turn or so, just to, so it's not overly tight. Gives me a little bit of relief if it binds. But it's up to you. There's no set instructions, at least as far as I saw, on how to set it up in the instructions themselves. Alright, now for the motor pinion gear installation. Nothing special about this. Slide it on, tighten it up, and then move on to the next steps. Trying to get everything lined up. You got your motor mount screws, washers. Trying to get all that worked out. And as you can see, like it's happened before, I've got the wrong size X. Oh, yep, how to get a bigger one. And snug those in, try to get everything lined up. I do this first. I'll go ahead and snug it in, line it up, and then I'll readjust my pinion. And I'll try to get it where both the pinion and the spur are flush with each other, top, you know, if you're looking, not in gear mesh, but just the tops of them, so that they're, you know, as much together, same level as possible. And then once I have that set, you'll see here that I'll go through and do the paper test, which is where you take a piece of paper and you run it between the spur and the pinion to make sure that it crimps nicely and not that it actually tears the paper. If it tears the paper, you've got your mesh too tight, and that'll wear out your gears far too quickly. So you can see I check this 3 or 4 times, then make adjustments, because I want to make sure that I've got a good solid mesh, but I don't want it too tight. You know, I want by the time the paper's done, it should look like sort of like a crinkle cut or a ruffle potato chip. You should have nice, distinct ripples, but you should not have any tears. That's the section where the dig would go, and somehow I lost some video here, but all you would have been seeing me doing is putting a couple of screws in, so nothing too big. Finally, dust cover on the spur and pinion set. Just tighten it down, bouncing around, not trying to over tighten one side before the other. And then the little dust caps. And there you have it. Wraith transmission. Done. Stay tuned.